Okay, students, for this video, I'm going to now show you how to create what's called the curve tags, which are C1, um, C8, C20, all these tags right in here. Now, I will tell you right now that I offer you an apology because this is this step on this process on this one particular class is going to be a little bit more difficult because we have a C1, and in numbering, we like to number in order. C2, C3, C4 are actually outside the subdivision boundary, and we didn't draw that. And I don't want to draw it because it's going to go into a whole other discussion. So it's going to be a few more steps because now we need to skip. We're going to start with C1, and it's purposely going to skip to C5, C6, C7, and C8. Okay. Ultimately, because we are going to create a curve table, you're also going to be missing the 2, 3, 4 also. Okay, so that's expected. I know that that's going to happen. So not something that I want to deal with at this point, but nonetheless, that is the nature of where we're at. Okay, so let's talk about how to create these curve tags, and that's the technical term of what we use here. It's called curve tags. So on the Civil 3D, the C1 is going to be the overall boundary, and then this is going to be C5 and C6. Okay. Now, as far as tags, and again, the way I get to our labels, notes, line and curve. Okay. Now we're going to be working with curve tags, and if I click on here, I do not have a curve tag style created already. These would label distance onlys and grades onlys and other things, which none of these are what I need for a C1 and C5 and C10 and all that. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to click on here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create myself a brand new style all on my own, just a brand new one. So I'm going to create new. So as far as the style I'm going to create, I'm going to call it something that makes sense to me, which, like I was mentioning earlier, I want to create a curve tag. So I'm going to name it curve tag. Under the general tab, on the other ones, I've told you to not change anything. That is not the case with this style in particular, because the display mode is still working as a label for this one style I'm creating. And I don't want a label. I want to change this label, click here, over to a tag, which is why I wanted to use the word curve tag. Then it will be working with C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, so on and so forth. We're going to go to layout. And under layout, the only thing we change is our text height to match our text height throughout the subdivision 0.08. Okay. You might be thinking to yourself, well, this is on the subdivision boundary, the C1. I realize that. Like I mentioned, for those of you that just want to work with all 0.08 text heights, just leave it alone and just work with all 0.08 text heights, even on the subdivision boundary. But for those few that want to create the C1 to be bigger, technically you would just have to make another style. You can call it curve tag. You can just name it differently and adjust that one. But if that confuses you, simply just leave it at 0.08 and just continue with that. Apply. That's the only change we need to do here. Hit OK. Now I have my curve tag style created in here. Okay. I'm going to click add, and I'm going to select my C1, which is this big arc right here. Okay. I'm not going to continue because there's no C2, and don't select these because it's going to name them C2 and C3. So I'm going to hit escape. I just like to adjust these as I go. I'm going to flip it. So the next one that I want to work with is now C5 and C6. Remember, C2, C3, C4 are outside the subdivision boundary. I don't want to work with those. Just leave them alone. So C1, so we're going to jump over to C5, and that's the only gap that we'll have in our sequence. Okay, the rest of them, you just might have to kind of look for them a little bit, but 5, 6, there's 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, but I'm going to start with 5 and 6. I'm going to stop because there's a reason why I'm going to stop, because I'm going to come over here to curve tag. Now, before I continue, I need to adjust my table tag numbering. So I'm going to click on here. Since I'm not going to work with 2, and as a matter of fact, if I were to just create another one under curve starting number, it would work with 2. I don't. I'm going to click on here and I want to change it to 5, enter. That way it starts with the 5, hit OK. And then I can add the C5, C6, and I'm going to stop right there. Again, I don't want to select C7. There's another thing we need to do, because look at C7. Okay. So, oops. So as far as C7, we need to consider the fact of where that we need to consider the fact of where C7 is measured from. C7 is actually from here to here. That is C7. C8 is actually from here to a point right there. It's kind of hard to see. C9 is a tiny itty bitty little arc in here. So we actually need to somehow break them in AutoCAD to be able to label C7, C8 individually, because otherwise the whole thing will be labeled as C7. And I can't do that. Okay. So then before I continue, I need to actually break this arc. Okay. And that's just using regular AutoCAD commands. If you're familiar with AutoCAD, you can kind of do it on your own. But other than that, I'm going to go back over to the Home tab. And let me just show you this command right in here under Modify. If I click on the Modify and expand it, I can use this button right in here. It's called Break at Point. Break at Point. Okay. So I'm going to select that one. And then I'm going to select the arc that I'm trying to break. I select it. And then the next thing is asking me, at what point do I want to break it? I mentioned it's going to be at this endpoint or intersection endpoint right there. So then I'll have now an arc that I can label as C7, C8, C9. Now look at how tiny C9 is, and that will occur. So I'm gonna see in here, that's C8 right in here. And look at this. There's a tiny little arc in here, which would be part of this geometry. And that happens just because of the fact you offset. So there's nothing you can do about it. Same thing on this side. Well, I already broke this one for us, but same thing on all of these. The cul-de-sac, those have to be broken. All of them have to be broken. The turning heel, all of them have to be broken at one point or another because they're all individual C's. Like in here in the C's for the cul-de-sac, we have C29, C28, 27, 26. We have quite a few of them. On the turning heel, we have them also. Okay. So they're kind of all over the place. They're kind of all over the place. All right. So I'm gonna do a few here, and then see 10. I'll do a few here to show you how to break them and label them. But again, those are things that you will have to do on your own, just to make sure we have everything labeled correctly and so on and so forth, and just make sure we have everything that we need to be able to label this correctly. So we have this piece here. We have another little piece here that's going to end up happening once I go and break at point. Command right in here. If you like to type your commands, you can actually type in the whole thing. It is called break at point. It's all one word, break at point. And that works the same way. It's the same thing as going in here and selecting the command. You just simply type in the whole word. And once you use it a couple of times, it'll actually show up once you start typing it in. Select, break at point, click. And then you have a tiny, tiny little arc. And remember, that is going to be happening all over the place. You're going to be using that in all kinds of instances. Now, do I want to do that here? Because eventually we're going to have our uh, 15, 14, 13. So how does those work? Like the 12 is going to be from here to here. Don't break it, because then right now C1 is actually the whole arc, and we need to leave that alone. So there's going to be another technique that I'm going to show you in the next few seconds on how to do that. But for now, let's just get everything up to C11, and then I'll tell you how we're going to work with that and how we're going to fix that. Okay. C5, C6, C7. If I look at my plat, is this arc right in here, 8, 9. So I think I broke those already. Let me go in here and just verify really, really quick. I got a little arc there. Excellent. 5, 6. The next one in my series, if I click on table tag numbering, is 7 indeed. Very good. Add. C7. C8. C9. Don't forget to zoom in there and select that tiny little arc right in there. That is C9. C10. C11. Okay. Now, and this is how I'm going to end this video, because the rest of them, I think you'll know what to do. You need to break at point all of these and just kind of follow along the plat and see where you need to break them. Let me just tell you the one technique that we need to do here. It's not sure it is the best technique, to be honest with you. Civil engineers have different ways of doing these things. I kind of don't like what I'm about to show you, but it's a workaround. If anybody figures out a better solution, there might be, and there probably is going to be a better solution. But nonetheless, let me just show you what I would do, what I've done in the past with these. Okay, C12, C13. Okay, so we need to realize a couple of things. C1 is this whole arc from here to here. C12 is going to be the arc from, it's the same one. I'm just putting it next to each other so you can kind of see. C12 is this one from here to here. C13 is the one next to it. It's going to be from here to here. Okay. So again, it's going to be different segments. It's different segments. Now, I can't break this one because then C1 is what's labeling the whole thing. So I can't break it. So my workaround, and again, I apologize. There might be an easier way or a better way. If anybody finds out how to do that, let me know, because I don't know how to make it better other than simply tracing. Trace the arc with another arc to label that one with the C12. Trace the arc for the 13 and the 14. I know that there's probably a better way. I just don't know what that would be at this point. Okay. Um, so many different ways. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a different. We have the C prop boundary, which is this layer that I'm asking to use. I guess for now I'll just leave it at that. I was hoping to use a different layer. I'm not sure I want to do that. And again, I'm literally thinking this through as I'm creating this video. I just wanted to use a different layer to make sure I'm drawing it correctly. So I think I'm just going to use just a different layer for now. Again, I'm telling you right now, this is not the best solution, but it's the only solution I have at this point, just so we can kind of proceed with the assignment. So let's just pick another layer. I guess we'll go with the C prop bearing, I guess. We'll go with that one. I want to do that one because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use an AutoCAD arc, and I'm just going to trace another arc from this endpoint where the C11 ends here. Another point along, I'm gonna pick a point along the arc. So I'm just gonna type in NEA for nearest, and that's gonna select a point along the arc. Doesn't really matter where. And then the last point will be endpoint over here. Okay. So I'm just literally tracing on top of the other one. And the only reason I'm doing that is that way I can go and add another tag, and you'll see highlighted will be for C12. Okay. I will tell you once again, this is probably not the best solution. There probably is a different way. I just don't know what that might be. Okay. If anybody in the future ever figures out, let me know. So I'm going to trace from this endpoint here, an arc. I'm typing A for arc. From this endpoint, NEA for nearest, because it's 3-point arcs. I'm just picking the 3 points along the arc. So that endpoint, the next objects now will be just anywhere here nearest, and then this endpoint here. Okay. Once again, it's just simply to add another curve tag for my C13. That way the C1 stays intact. And then I'm coming back and labeling C12 and C13. Okay. We could then later match properties. Just match these so that at least they're all on the same layer, and you really can't tell that there's on top of each other. So once again, that might not be the best solution, but now you know at this point what you need to do. You need to break arcs wherever necessary and start labeling. How many do we have? We should have a total of, if you look at your curve table over here, 53 arcs. So somewhere in there is 53 arcs, okay? If you have an error and you mess up the numbering, don't there's no reason to panic too much. In another video later in the series, I'll show you how to renumber. If you can get to renumber some of these curve tags. Okay. Next video will show you how to create the table.